But like some of our stuff on Facebook has gotten 2 million views.
Like I said,
by the way, which is much larger than CNN's audience.
Well, to me, it's just a cool thing that I've watched and admired your stuff. And when the moment you said Writer's Cabin, it's when it clicked in today, because it's been crazy. So, yeah, it's been great, Jeff. I take it Jeff is not spelled Geoff, or is it Jeff?
If it was spelled Geoff, I would have changed it to a normal spelling.
Okay, I figure you probably would. All right, yeah. All right.
Okay, so we have folks joining in now. Holly's kind of keeper of the stuff. Can you guys hear us now? Oh, here we go. We got this. People are knocking it out. So I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds so people can jump on.
Your wife looks like that Hollywood actress. I forget her name now. I'm trying to Google it. It's God, she's a well-known actress. Looks exactly like her.
A little, I don't know, Uma Thurman or something. I don't know what you got going.
No, I don't have Uma Thurman.
No, there's somebody else, and there was a TV series about criminality in Appalachia, and Holly.
We're gonna find her then.
No,
I know what series you're talking about. Was that?
Yeah.
What is it? No.
The one we watched.
Yeah.
Justified?
Yeah. Was it Justified?
No.
I'll be guessing all day.
It's another one, and I just can't think of it. She's a very, very well-known actress.
Yeah.
My God, she looks like her. Jesus.
Right? Lucky me.
You are lucky. How long have you guys been married?
Just a couple of years.
Wow, that's awesome. Good luck for you, man.
Yeah, we're second life for us here,
Well, it's I'm like I said, I'm just getting. There's a Yiddish word kvel, which means and just kind of kveling I made it to the writer's cabin.
Yeah,
maybe someday actually in the cabin drinking some Fireball or something.
Yeah, we do cider. We're gonna have a cider bar here by this next year. We're building it right now. And by the way, we call you probably know that on our pages we call all of our followers misfits, and so people are buying merchandise, T-shirts and mugs and stuff that we put up, and they're sending us pictures. So we're going to put framed pictures of all the misfits who buy merchandise in the cider bar on the walls.
The thing I like is the way you give your bona fides without coming across like an asshole, because you've got some really good ones, and you've got a really good. I congratulate you on that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I am an asshole, and but I try not to sound like an asshole.
All right, no problem.
All right, let's do this. So, everybody, thanks very much. I just want to give some introductions here to Michael Weinstein, and actually he goes by Mikey, so we're going to go by Mikey. I'm just going to read you some of his background because it's super impressive. And obviously, the topic we're talking about tonight comes into play. Mikey. Harper's Magazine. So he's been published in all sorts of places, but Harper's Magazine called him the constitutional conscience of the United States military, a man determined to force accountability. It's important to know that Mikey's family has been long and distinguished U.S. military career spanning 3 consecutive generations of military academy graduates, over 130 years of combined active duty military service in every major combat engagement our country has been in, from World War I all the way through the global war on terror. I don't know too many people in Congress who can state those bona fides. 77 honor graduate of the United States Air Force Academy. Honestly, 48 years of marriage, that's at the top of the thing. I mean, a family man. The Republican Party is always talking about how they're the party of family values. You're actually apparently living up to it. Most people are not in that party. Your oldest son and daughter-in-law, 2004 U.S. Air Force Academy graduates. Your second oldest son graduated from the Air Force Academy in 2007. 7 total members of your family attended the academy. Your father, this just goes on and on. Your father was a distinguished graduate of the United States Naval Academy. I played hockey against them, actually. They were excellent hockey team. And by the way, they have a great arena there. It's got anyways, I'll talk about that.
Really? Okay.
Their arena is fantastic. The Naval Academy, they have a rink, and then they have like this walk around thing that goes around all the way around the top, so you stand over the game and watch it. It's really cool.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, really cool. Let's see. Registered Republican. They wouldn't have thought that, right? The people wouldn't have thought that. Registered Republican.
Yeah.
It's been over 3 years working in and for the West Wing of the Reagan administration as legal counsel for the White House. So they're going to call you a rhino right off the bat, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'm very used to that.
Yeah. Final position there. Mikey was named the Committee Management Officer of the much publicized Iran-Contra investigation, which tells you a little bit about his age, because I watched that when I was like 12 years old on CNN, back when it was owned not by Warner Brothers. Let's see. As a capacity of Assistant General Counsel of the White House Office of Administration, Executive Office of the President of the United States. It goes on and on. I'm going to give a couple more just because I think it's really important to what topic we're talking about. I used to work for Ross Perot and left him in 2006 to help to found the Military Religious Freedom Forum, which you're the president of now.
Foundation.
Foundation. And I remember I wanted to mention this for you guys that want to follow their work, which right now is really critical. It's www.militaryreligiousfreedom.org. I'll do one more time, and we'll say it at the end of the broadcast. Militaryreligiousfreedom.org. And some great information on their page today about what's going on. Your stuff. You've been in stories in the Associated Press, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, the Denver Post, the Guardian, and many other national and international newspapers, periodicals, including Time Magazine. Those are all the big ones. And a couple of the medium-sized ones too. You've had some books that you've written, With God on Our Side, One Man's War Against Evangelical Coup in America's Military. It was written in October 2006, published then. Paperback version released in 2008. The book is an expose on the systemic problem of religious intolerance throughout the United States Army forces. One last thing, you've also received nominations for JFK's Profiling Courage, and probably the bigger ones. You guys have been nominated 8 times for Nobel Peace Prize, including just this past year. And if you're asking me, they gave it to the wrong people. Now looking at it's no offense to Maria Machado, but she turned
kind of a low bar. Yeah,
she turned on. I mean, what can you say? Yeah. But at least they didn't give it to the person currently occupying the White House. And so the discussion today is really about, let's just get into it. The Guardian put out a piece on this, which is, you guys, I love to give credit to the reporters doing the hard work, because really I'm not doing the hard work. I'm just hosting a podcast, and that is nothing like what it takes to dig into these stories. But U.S. military commanders, this was by Sarah Braun. U.S. military commanders have been invoking extremist rhetoric about biblical, quote, end times. What the fuck? To justify involvement in the Iran war to its troops, according to complaints made to this media watchdog group, of which Mikey is the president of. The Military Religious Freedom Foundation says it's received more than 200 complaints. This is as of yesterday, and I'm sure there's many, many more, that service members across all branches of the armed forces, including the Marines, Air Force, and Space Force, have been making about this, their commanders. One complaint, which I thought was particularly poignant for the story, said at any moment, a commander told them at any moment, operations against Iran, complaint viewed by the Guardian. So you actually showed them the complaint, that their commander had urged us to tell our troops that this was, quote, all part of a God's divine plan. And he specifically referenced numerous citations out of the book of Revelation, referring to Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ. I hope he comes back after the war is over with. He said that President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth. This is what these guys had to listen to. And it wasn't like he just said it to him. He said it to a group of his soldiers, right? So let's start. We've kind of got you out of the way here, and your bona fides and the complaints that are coming in. Just tell us what you've been dealing with over the last few days since.
Well, let me make sure that people know what we are. I mean, we're a nonprofit. You can, the easy URL is mrff.org. Just think of MrFirefighter.org. It doesn't stand for that, but we've been around we're in our 21st year, and yes, we have those Nobel Peace Prize nominations. I'm not trying to sound like an asshole or filled with hubris and arrogance, but the last 5 nominations have come from winners of the Peace Prize. So that's something that we're particularly proud of. We represent more than 100,000 members of the U.S. military, sailors, soldiers, Marines, airmen. Jeff, do you know what they're called in the Space Force?
I do not.
Guardians. It's like the Cleveland baseball team, the Guardians.
Ah, yeah, that's right. That's
Guardians.
right. And they have some pretty funky looking uniforms.
Right. And It is unusual. And then we have out of DOD, we don't call it the Department of War. We've got the Coast Guard, which is DHS, and the U.S. Maritime Service, which is the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. That's DOT. Our job is pretty simple. We're not a complex meal like Chateaubriand. We're a freaking hamburger. You can't use your position of military authority to force feed a weaponized version of the gospel of Jesus Christ on an otherwise helpless subordinate. We've been doing it for a long, long ass time. About 95% of our clients are Christians being tortured by their chains of command for simply, Jeff, not being Christian enough. We represent about 18% of all Muslims in the U.S. military. We represent, obviously, tons of Jews and Buddhists and Hindus, Native American spiritualists, Wiccans, of course, atheists, agnostics, secularists, and humanists. If you remember the late famous atheist Christopher Hitchens, if you're
one of
familiar
my
with him,
favorite writers. One of my favorite
I love him.
writers.
He was a client for 6 months because the Air Force Academy wouldn't let him speak there. I really miss Christopher Hitchens. And the first, we've had this happen before with this.
By the way, let me just interrupt real quick, Mikey.
Yeah,
you're not anti-religion, and you're not like they have some pretty interesting names for you. They call you Satan, and all these crazy nicknames that.
Yeah, I think Jerry Falwell was one that came up with the Field General of the Godless Armies of Satan. You know, but he's dead, so that's great. And Pat Robertson had a few.
He's just down the road from us, actually.
Yeah, well, I know you're there in Virginia. So I'm Jewish. I'm not that religious. We are pro-Constitution, separation of church and state. We have 12 members of the Jedi Church right out of Star Wars. We don't care what their faith is. We just focus about the time, place, and manner in which someone feels they can propagate their particular faith. And the enemy is almost 99.9% of the time what we used to call fundamentalist Christians or dominionist Christians, and now it's Christian nationalists, which is the jet fuel that propels and animates all of MAGA. Whenever we see anything happening in the Middle East, we get this noxious thing coming out that, hey, it's wonderful, let's throw a party. Clearly, Jesus is coming back. When the IDF started, their attacks all over Gaza against the Palestinians in retaliation for October 7th, whatever it was, 2023, I think it was, we got the same thing. But nothing like what started happening on Saturday after the unprovoked attack against Iran, a country that has not done anything more than Mickey Mouse to try to intimidate us to the full measure of war. We started getting calls. We had a
nuclear agreement with during the Obama administration that Trump ripped up in his first term.
Absolutely.
And what was he trying to do? What he says he was trying to do is get a new agreement on the table that he thought worked better.
Right.
He had a couple meetings, and then he said it wasn't going to work. So he ripped up one agreement to try to get another agreement so he could go to war.
Well, the orange sociopath narcissist is basically a 2-year-old, and he's never worked a day in his life, but he's a sock puppet for all these evil people like the ones who wrote Project 2025. However, we started getting contacts. It was from 40 different, I think it was 30 different installations, 40 different units, and 110 of our clients, again, across all branches, indicating that their commanders were thrilled with the fact that this was heralding or hearkening in the end times, which if you're a fundamentalist Christian nationalist, you're promised a beautiful metric of 200-mile-long river, 4.5 feet deep, filled with nothing, Jeff, but the human blood of those that their version of weaponized Jesus has slaughtered at the Battle of Armageddon. And you can imagine our clients were in a state of shock, but if you've ever been in the military, your military superior is not your shift manager at Starbucks or your supervisor at 60 Minutes. They completely control your life. The military is peculiarly adversarial, communal, ritualistic, and tribal. In the military, adultery is routinely punished as a felony. Why? Because it destroys good order, morale, discipline, and unit cohesion, health and safety of the troops, and mission accomplishment,
etc.
Yes. If you're ordered to go to the base dentist at, say, 1,600 hours and you don't go, felony. So if you're even being gently evangelized, sorry, our dogs are alerting. If you're even being gently evangelized by your military superior, get the F out of my face, sir or ma'am, is not an option for you. So they come to us and we do it. We're very militant and aggressive, but our militancy and aggression is in support of our U.S. Constitution, not any particular faith or against any faith or non-faith tradition. We're always legal, ethical, and moral, but we have to fight hard. We've worked very hard to create an aggressive persona, and there's only two ways to affect the Pentagon and DoD, and that is you sue them in federal court. We're suing the Air Force Academy now. We're also suing the VA. We've done it before, but that requires a plaintiff, and for a client to out themselves, we can't always get John Doe and Jane Doe protection as we did when we sued the Air Force Academy several years ago. So the next thing that we use is exposure in the media, which is exactly what we're doing right now from the writer's cabin. And we are letting people know that if you think it's okay to try to join at the hip our unprovoked aggressive attack, not congressionally approved, illicit attack on Iran or anything like that, and make it connected to causally and justified, to a book that nobody understands. There's thousands of Christian denominations. They all have different views of the New Testament, particularly the book of Revelation, and trying to indicate that, hey, we're almost there. We can help serve as an accelerant and lubricant for our Lord and Savior, meek and mild Jesus, to come back and kick ass in the Battle of Armageddon. That is not just a national security threat to our country, but to our entire world. It's illicit, immoral, illegal. And what's interesting is the Pentagon could easily have responded by saying just 4 words, fuck them, fake news. But every time a journalist reads out, if it's happened, just the last 48 hours, dozens of times, they're not denying it. They're just referring everybody to the briefing that Hegseth gave on the attack Monday morning at the Pentagon with General Rajan Kane, who's the chairman of the JCS, and that's not responsive at all. It'd be very easy to say it's not happening. We don't know if it came top down. We don't know what happened.
Well, it seems to me if they're saying it's at 30 different military installations in the continental United States and Oconus, then it's probably somebody's saying something from the top down. We just don't know. And by the way, if they said no, who the fuck would believe them at this point?
Right. There's no credibility. And now, if the numbers, yes, the numbers, Jeff, are much larger now. We're only going to go this high. It's well over 200 clients at well over 50 locations overseas and here in the continental United States, the CONUS. And obviously, our clients are terrified. They're not built to handle this kind of abuse. I mean, I'm a public figure. Didn't ask to be one, but here in a blue state, in a blue town like Albuquerque, in a blue neighborhood, we've had the windows shot out of our house on 2 occasions. We've had innocent animals beheaded and disemboweled, left on the front of the house. Like I said, I'm Jewish, but not very religious. We've had swastikas and crucifixes painted on the house. What else? Beer bottles and feces thrown in the house, feces smeared on the mailbox. You can see the German Shepherds we have here are not pets. They're elite level protection dogs, attack and defense.
Yeah, I think I did have a question about that later on, but just we'll get to it right away. You actually need German Shepherds protecting your property because of the threats that you've had against you, correct? And
it's not
of this.
We have a very complex
years you've been doing this.
Yes, a very complex infrared camera system, a very close relationship with our law enforcement and our own private security. We have concealed carry, and we have to look over our shoulders all the time. And we probably get on a regular day somewhere between 12 to 18 fairly grotesque threats of violence that are interspersed with anti-Semitism because I'm Jewish and my last name isn't Smith. It's Weinstein. I'm a lawyer, so that makes me a Pharisee in their eyes or a Sadducee. And we got a very serious threat in on the website the evening of January 31st, offering $20,000 to kill me and $5,000 for any of our staff members. I was actually offended because I thought I was worth a lot more than that. But we turned it over to law enforcement.
A few solid hours of you typing up a legal brief.
Right. The bottom line, of course, yeah, we're pro bono, bro. But is that I'm only saying this because this kind of abuse we will handle for our clients who call in, because we give our clients AARP, and not the one you're thinking about, but anonymity, action, results, and protection. And this latest situation is so far off the scale. But if the other viewers from the writer's cabin want to Google Jesus nukes or Jesus rifles, those were huge stories. It turns out that we had 68 U.S. Air Force nuclear missile launch officers coming to us because they were being indoctrinated with the same end times philosophy at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, which I went to high school. My dad was stationed there, where they trained all the missile launch officers. We got the PowerPoint under FOIA. Jesus rifles, every rifle that we were using downrange in the Middle East had an inscription burned into its the scopes they were using, citations from the synoptic gospels of Matthew, Mark and Luke and the non-synoptic Gospel of John and the book of Revelation from a defense contractor called Trigicon. You might want to wonder what the TRI stood for at Trigicon. Obviously, Trinity. And the bad ops of that going into a village with rifles, that have all the New Testament inscriptions on them. We were able to get those removed, we think. And we were able to stop the training of the missile launch officers that Jesus loves nukes is what they called it. So we do this every day, every night. It's around the clock. Members of our military are not going to contact journalists. They wouldn't have a clue about, what does it mean to be on background, on the record, off the record. They're not going to call some of our allies, like the ACLU, People for the American Way, Americans United, Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Even if they were to do something like that, that Hegseth in one sweet stroke of a pen wouldn't court-martial them or administratively discharge them quietly for.
I don't think it would even be quiet.
Of duty or conduct unbecoming or all the things that they could try to push them like they've done with Mark Kelly for saying nothing.
I was about to say Mark Kelly before you did. Here you've got a national hero, Navy fighter pilot, right out of Top Gun Maverick. He touches them all. He's an astronaut. He's married to a heroic female former congressman who almost was killed, shot in the head, Gabby Giffords. And of course, he's a sitting U.S. senator. And he committed the horrible crime of advising members of the military, along with 5 other members of Congress, to not break the law, to follow only legal orders. With that, they're trying to bring him back and court-martial him. He has all kinds of invulnerabilities. Can you imagine the vulnerability of a junior member of the military, whether be they officer or enlisted? They have none. So they come to us and we do it. The easiest thing is for people to say, well, Mikey makes all this up. It doesn't exist. Oh, it exists. It exists. Well, that's why we've been doing it for more than a fifth of a century. And when you tell somebody in the military, Jeff, that they lack integrity, courage, intelligence, bravery, and intrepidity because of their chosen religious faith or lack thereof, why, Jeff, there's no difference between that and telling someone they're stupid because of the color of their skin or because they were born a woman. It is a horrible aspect of bigotry, prejudice, and hatefulness.
Mikey, if you just had people in the military who were nationalistic evangelicals, you would not have a 1,000,000-man army.
Correct. That's exactly correct.
That's the problem with all these policies, and I'm not just talking about, and I'm not going to get into the other issues, but with these policies in place to get rid of people because of their sexual orientation and all the kinds of things that they're trying to do, you're actually diminishing the capability of the U.S. military. But
let me expand. That's a beautiful observation. I want to give you some facts for it. The approved solution for Hegseth is 4 aspects to be a human being in the military: straight, white, fundamentalist Christian, nationalist, and male. But if you look back in history, our greatest armies, Jeff, and navies were massively diverse. The British Navy and British Army, the Roman Army and Navy, Xerxes, with Persia, Alexander the Great, because their armies were made up of cobbled together from all the people they conquered, and they were powerful.
And look at within our own military with the code breakers, the Native American code breakers.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Diversity, whole unit of black pilots.
Yes, Tuskegee Airmen.
Tuskegee Airmen. It has a long history of important service across all.
It's completely wrong to try to make it a Stepford wife, one size fits all template of straight white, Steve Canyon looking, fundamentalist Christian nationalist male. And that is where we are. But we have, remember what is tattooed on the right bicep of Pete. We call him Kegseth, a beer keg, right? Is Deuce Vote. Yeah, right.
He's always ready to shoot somebody for no reason.
Yes. But what is tattooed on his right bicep is a Crusader slogan of Deuce Vote, God wills it. And we look exactly like I said, the 9th version of the 8 prior crusades from the 11th century to the 13th century. All that does is provide a recruiting bonanza for Al-Qaeda and the Arabian Peninsula and ISIS. Anybody, be they Shiite or Sunni, who are fighting and want to be energized by saying we are fighting the Crusaders. And it is going to result, like I said before, in not little streams or brooks or lakes or ponds. It's going to result in oceans and oceans of blood. It's happened over and over again. So no shit. In this country right now, either you are resisting or you are collaborating. And if you make a decision to do neither, let me make it clear. you are collaborating. So get off your asses if you haven't already. Donate to organizations that are helpful. Stand up if someone's talking in public. Get out on the street like in Minneapolis. Do something so that you don't sit there and just reflect light, circulate blood, and breathe when your kids or grandkids sit there and ask you, Mom or Dad, Grandma, Grandpa, what did you do to fight this? That's assuming we ever pull out of this death spiral, in going into this abyss of Christian nationalism. I know the date's March 4th, Jeff, March 4th, 2026, but it feels like March 4th, 1933 in Nazi Germany.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
You can't just get ready for your Thursday night bowling thing and go on with life as usual. Not anymore. If you don't want to just circulate blood, reflect light, and breathe, and tell that to your family while we try to lose what we have in this country, as we're on the verge of celebrating a quarter of a millennia being together. Remember the famous statement, I know from Dr. Benjamin Franklin after the Constitutional Convention, when he walked out into the street. He was the rock star of his day, and everybody beseeched him, Dr. Franklin, what kind of document did you all give us? And he said, a republic, if you can keep it. Well, we've almost lost it. And here we sit on this in this podcast. No shit. It's DEFCON 1, man.
Mikey, you talked a lot about the repercussions of U.S. military personnel taking this attitude into places that Muslim fundamentalists can then use as weaponization against us. But there's another side of that too, which I hope everybody listening tonight can think about. When we're taking that attitude into the Middle East, it's not just being listened to from the Iranian government and inspiring more fundamentalists. It's being listened to by our fucking allies. Think about Kuwait. Think about Oman. Think about the United Arab Emirates. Think about Bahrain. Think about Jordan, who has been a huge supporter. All these. Think about Saudi Arabia. For whatever I think of Saudi Arabia, they have been a big supporter of the United States. And these countries many of them are filled with many Muslims who are deciding every day whether they can trust us, like us, or the Kurds. All these are Muslim countries, and so you're actually insulting with regularity the people who you're asking to help fight with us against Iran. So it's not just creating more fundamentalism, creating ISIS and all these other groups. You're creating a situation where when you go to those governments, they're saying like, what? That Donald Trump is the spokesperson for Jesus?
Well, and Jeff, and as you said, remember our NATO allies. You still remember NATO, right? Have large Islamic populations. Look how Trump has treated Ilhan Omar, in Minnesota. It is again.
Yeah, they're saying she should be kicked out of the country and sent back to Somalia, et cetera, et cetera.
All these other countries are shit countries, right? And it's we're dealing with a situation of it is absolutely permeated every aspect. It is inextricably intertwined with what we call the Pentecostal gone at this point. And remember, Hegseth is doing something that was unthinkable just a short while ago. Once a month, he holds a Jesus praise service in the largest auditorium of the Pentagon, in uniform with people, during the duty day. He brought in his favorite pastor, Doug Wilson, on Tuesday, February 17th, 12:30.
That fucking lunatic.
Wilson thinks that the slavery in the South was biblically justified. And he reminds everyone, as an apologist, that many slave owners really kind of liked their slaves, like they liked their living room furniture. Jews killed Jesus. Women cannot vote. Women cannot serve in the military. Their job is to open their legs, get pregnant, raise children, go to the grocery store, buy food, serve food, prepare food, and clean up afterwards. Muslims are suspicious and can't be part of anything. If you're LGBTQIA+, you don't deserve to live. Because if you've ever read Margaret Atwood's book, The Handmaid's Tale, or watched the Hulu series, this is Gilead, everybody. And I highly recommend that book. We were reached out to by the showrunners of that show several years ago. First, they thanked us for fighting against the hellscape dystopia they show in their show. And we gave them as much information as we could because people don't really understand the military. But it's something that is just beyond disgusting to see, and it requires action to fight. And who's ever sitting here watching this, drinking beer or coffee or whatever they're doing, listen to me. Listen to me. Do fucking something now. Fight as much as you can. And if you don't agree with what we're saying or whatever, then fuck you. You're the enemy. You're the Nazis. You're Christian nationalist stormtroopers, and we're not going to live in a Gilead. It's as simple as that. But we can't wait to fight the day after the midterms. And the midterms, by the way, are not going to save us. Even if they take both houses of Congress, Trump will be impeached, and maybe this time he'll actually be found guilty in the Senate. Do you think, honestly, Jeff, it's not rhetorical, you think he's going to leave? I don't think he's going to leave. I think it's
He
going to
didn't want
spark
to
a
leave the
potential
last time, and he
civil
was a
war.
lot less powerful
Right.
then.
Yeah, I think there's a possibility, a distinct one, of a civil war. And
Well,
so
there's a
here we
reason.
sit.
There's a reason they're spending $160 billion funding ICE,
Yes, that's
and there's a
exactly
reason they're building massive facilities for deportees, but putting them in those facilities. Those are places that you can store other people, by the way. And I don't have proof of that, but like the tea leaves, right? So you have to read them.
Correct.
But I would say, so my question is, and I want to remind people again, this is, who might be just joining. Mikey Weinstein, he's Jewish. He's a family man at 48 years to his wife, and every generation for the last 3 or 4 generations have all served in the U.S. military and been to some of the greatest military academies this country has ever developed. And secondly, he was a lawyer during the Iran-Contra affair for the Reagan administration. So he's a Republican, okay, who worked in the Reagan administration, who prior to Donald Trump, he was the man. He was the man. Everybody loved him. Now they're thinking, I don't know about Ronald Reagan. He might not be as great as Donald Trump. But this is a diehard family man Republican who is having problems with the current administration. Remember, I always say it's not for me about whether you're blue or red. I am not a blue or red anything. I just don't like, as my T-shirt says, liars and hypocrites. Period.
Right.
Full stop. And we're in a place where that's what we have. We have liars and hypocrites. I'd like, Mikey, if you would just tell me. So there's this imposition on American service members and troops imposes them the will of the Christian nationalist movement, and that's a problem for them. But we really would like to delve into the national security implications, because I've talked about our allies a little bit. You've talked a little bit about potential enemy, but this is serious business. If you're creating this jihad type situation by just talking about shit like this, you never would have done. In fact, George Bush Jr., we'll call him. I thought he was one of the dumbest guys to ever be president. I didn't think there would ever be anybody dumber than him. But he was even careful saying, hey, 9/11, it's not about religion. It's about these religious zealots, and we're not fighting a religious war. Even he said that. But now we're turning tables, and these guys are embracing this concept. And what does that mean for American service members who are serving these regions where there are drone flights coming in and bombing their buildings?
I got a message through my daughter-in-law, who's a member of the city council of Hudson, Ohio. She's married to my son. They're both 2004 grads. My son is a state senator, Democratic state senator in Ohio, Casey Weinstein. She got a message yesterday from one of her friends who's an Army vet. His son is in leading a platoon in a small, one of the nations that you mentioned, that is being just hammered right now by the Iranians. It's another sovereign Islamic nation. And he's seeing this story about trying to merge the Christian end times philosophy of the Battle of Armageddon with Revelation with this action in Iran. He's terrified for his own kids. It really is something that is not, it affects life and limb. If you don't get with the program, if the program is from your commander, as I said before, we use the term voluntold. If your commander suggests or urges you to do something, that is an order. And the verb is you're being voluntold to do it. When Hegseth holds these monthly Jesus prayer services, they're carried on, Channel 2 internally at the Pentagon, so everyone can watch it. They're right, and they're logged in DVids, which is a way for everyone to watch, and that sets the, if you will, the ball in motion.
I did not know that they're putting those prayer meetings in divots.
Oh, divots! They're all in divots right there too. You can see them. Yep, and I'm glad to know that you know what it is.
So divots, you guys. No, I spent 30 years covering conflicts. That's what I did for 60 Minutes in National Geographic and for Vice on HBO. 30 years of war reporting, and I've had to use the divot system many times. Just so you guys don't know, it's a little inside baseball between me and Mikey. Divots is the military's defense, the military's website that posts video that's shot internally by members of the military that are part of their public affairs infrastructure. They shoot that stuff. It goes on the divot system, and it becomes public not only internally but also externally. And people can use that video. And if you're looking for something that happened usually in the Middle East, somebody's bombing some building or something, oftentimes they'd be put up on divots. Or if they're doing glad handing local nationals or something, they would put a lot of that fluffy stuff up there as well. Right. And you can get free video from the military to help to help with B-roll on your stories for CNN or whatever. And so Divots is a public system that people are able to access. And to me,
Right.
it was always for mostly, it was supposed to be for journalists so they could access video. And,
right. But anybody
so,
can really get there. And these are all being put up there. And of course,
that is
they're
news.
being live streamed on Channel 2 throughout the Pentagon. So
Wow.
you're creating this cookie cutter template of what the correct leader is supposed to be. So how can you at all, not expect that commanders, both in the continental United States and overseas, OCONUS, would not see that and go, well, I'm going to be just like that. I want to make sure that I can spread the gospel and also that my chain of command promotes me. So I got to make sure that I'm the right type of Christian.
So I'm assuming they're not putting up any of Pete Hegseth's pull-ups.
Apparently not. I mean, the one that's, of course, gone viral. He says, well, they got me at the end of doing them. I'd done a whole bunch before I did that last one that I was struggling for.
Sure they did.
But, when we had at that mandatory meeting when Hegseth called all generals and admirals back, 1-star to 4-star, right, and all senior enlisted, 838 people in that room at Quantico. We had 17 of our clients there. And they made it clear that, you know what, after looking at this guy, and Trump came in as well, these are not just, paper tiger bullies, but they're posers. They're not real. They're not real. They have no clue what they're doing. And yet we have all of this destructive power. We can, we've plucked away. I'm not saying that, the leader, of course, was a great guy down there, Maduro. But we went in and, we killed 100 people. And now he's sitting in Rikers, I guess, in New York.
We call it the most expensive drug arrest in U.S. history.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
$3 billion fucking dollars. $3 billion to go get a guy and his wife.
Right.
And we said we're going to fix that country and take it over and pump all the oil. And now we've learned that the oil executives don't want to go there because it's too complicated, and their government doesn't really want to give the concessions. They took the stuff from them in the first place, and the guys don't want to go in unless they're compensated for what they're owed.
Well, Jeff, when you talk about oil, let's remember that North Korea and China and Russia get a lot of oil from a place called Iran. So
that's right.
When you start cutting and choking them off, you have to start thinking really hard about, Xi Jinping and Putin and Kim Jong-un and what is this going to mean? Yeah, I'd like to say that I've been asked by many folks today, many journalists today and yesterday, Mikey, are there any adults left in the room, as the old saying goes? No. There's Stephen Miller, there's Pam Bondi, there's, Caroline Levitt, there's Tulsi Gabbard.
The closest adult in the room is Marco Rubio. And Marco
that's
Rubio,
terrifying.
No, wait a second. He's the closest one in the room to being an adult. And just, it was either yesterday or today, I heard him talking about, how they attacked some of our embassies in the last couple of days, somehow forgetting the fact that the reason the Iranians attacked our embassies is because we attacked them first.
Right. When we are arresting,
even from the smart guy in the room.
Yes. When we are arresting our sense of security on Marco Rubio. Look, your shirt says no hypocrites. You want to talk about people like Lindsey Graham, barely a human being, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio. If you work for this MFer, you are just as bad. You are just as bad. If you work for Hitler.
Speaker Mike Johnson, either yesterday or today, said that we're not in a state of war. We're not in a state of war. He said that.
Right. We call him the squeaker of the house, as they call it, right?
Can you imagine the inferences to the book 1984? You're not, what is the famous quote where they say, the last command is to not believe things that you see with your own eyes.
Correct.
And Mike, I'm paraphrasing it, but Mike Johnson,
I know what you're saying.
The epitome of that. He literally said, "We're not at war." Either today or yesterday. He said, no, I think it was yesterday, because he said, we're just 4 days in. We're not. And
it's just like what we saw, what happened with our own eyes with Alex. Yes, Alex Preddy, Renee Good. We saw what happened there, and the idea of the party tells you not to believe it. You don't believe it. Aldous Huxley and Orwell. There's so many of these that are out there. Fahrenheit 451. But we're there now. The push to display 10 Commandments in public schools. All of this is stuff that is. Our constitutional framers, deliberately created this chasm, this Grand Canyon between church and state, spiritual and temporal. Why? Because we've ended up with, again, I use the term, oceans and oceans of blood when we try to mix this stuff. And so we are losing the battle right now. We are losing it.
And Mikey, this rhetoric that could inflame Muslims across the region wouldn't
Oh,
just be
yeah.
would not just be in the places like, our own allies in the Persian Gulf, but you did see attacks on consulates in places like Pakistan, and
Yes.
right next door you have the Taliban, who are not, they're not pals with Iran. They running their own government there. Can you imagine, like, if you had fundamentalists and ISIS that are along the Afghan Iranian border and in those regions there, and militant groups that are there, then deciding they're going to start attacking American targets outside of Iran, which is going to happen. It's
and
going to
Jeff,
happen.
don't forget Malaysia. We have
That's right.
giant Muslim population there in a different part of the world as well.
That's right.
So and then we you'll see the MAGA people very arrogantly talking about Dearbornistan, in Michigan. And as I said before, what is being done, the damage being done to our military. Okay, my dogs just heard your dogs.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. We have people in our cabins, and they sometimes come down, and the dogs always bark, and then they hug them and lick them.
Well, they're doing the right thing.
Jordy's doing his job, trying to earn his kibbles.
No, I completely get it. This is something that, again, as I said before, requires action. We're doing generational damage. It's not something that's going to be fixed in any sort of near term. If we survive generations from now, they'll look back at this time worse than we look back on the French Revolution with Marie Antoinette and let them eat cake. And I don't think there's anybody watching this podcast, or if you fall into this category, you're not living the right way. If nobody here has lost a friend, a college classmate, a member of their family to MAGA, and you're stupefied as to who, you're not getting out much. You're not getting out much. And,
yeah. So I had my question then becomes, where does religion have a place on the battlefield? I'll give you an example. When I used to go on these, and I've been on dozens and dozens and dozens of embeds. I've been in vehicles that were blown up. I've been shot, all that kind of stuff. Members of my team kidnapped. I've covered war since 1993 or 94, my first conflict, and I just stopped doing it recently. Many of the embeds that I would go on right before we go, they get the chaplain, non-denominational. He'd sit around, he would say a prayer, and oftentimes it said things like, defeating your enemy, an enemy of God, and so in many of those cases, you're dealing with a lot of Christian people, say, who really feel like faith is important to them when they're getting ready to do something that is so terrifying and scary. And there was always a part of me that was like, and I'm agnostic, okay? So you guys can call me the Satan as well, but I respect everyone's religion, because they're going to have to respect the fact that I'm agnostic, and I respect the fact that they're religious. And my thought is, if they want to have a prayer that makes them go out and figure out a way to capture and kill people that are trying to harm Americans, that's their thing. I can't say much about it. I stand there and, put my head down, and then I get on the choppers with them. So is there a place in the U.S. military where religion is okay? And
yes.
And where does it have a place?
We use the example.
When people come home from war, anytime
Right.
I've ever covered somebody was killed in a war zone, I'm thinking about National Geographic when we covered the Mali experience, when those guys were killed in Mali, and brought home to the 82nd Airborne Chapel, the Special Operations Chapel at Fort Bragg, 21 gun salute, the works. That's religious. So where does it have a place, and how do you deconflict that from your views, so that people understand that this is not a fight against religion? You're not anti-religion.
No, as I told you, most of our staff are Christians. Most of our clients are Christians. It's all about time, place, and manner. Jeff, you and I and our wives both have driver's licenses. Does that mean we can drive whenever we want? No, you can't drive if you're stoned, drunk, you're too tired, or you're on medication. It's about time, place, and manner. The scenarios that you talked about before going out to battle or whatever, of course, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. If it's always being done with the majority faith, our chaplains are supposed to perform or provide. Perform the services for the military members, and if you've got someone who's from a minority faith, provide some other way for them to get it. My wife Bonnie and I had the first Jewish wedding in the history at the famous Air Force Academy Chapel, because we had 400 people there. They couldn't fit downstairs in the 99-person synagogue, so we had the first one ever in the Protestant chapel. And so we have so many military chaplains who are clients of ours, and chaplain endorsing agencies. But you can't be a chaplain.
Over a little bit, Mikey. You're starting to go off the screen.
Sorry,
all the way.
You can't be a chaplain unless you're endorsed officially by one of the endorsers. We have endorsers that are supporters of ours, and we have many clients who are chaplains. We understand A lot of America still thinks the chaplains are like Father Mulcahy from MASH, and as a matter of fact, one of my dearest friends, one of our most active advisory board members is Mike Farrell, who played Dr. B.J. Honeycutt. That's a fabulous guy. And, right now, though, 84% of the chaplaincy are evangelicals, which by itself is okay. But like about a third of those are hardcore fundamentalists. And they believe that their job is to proselytize to the nth degree. And so every situation needs to look at, again, time, place, and manner. Let me give you an example of what the exact wrong thing would be. Holding a, quote, optional, but you're being voluntold to go, Jesus Praise service at the Pentagon every month in the largest auditorium during the duty day in uniform. That's wrong. The scenarios that you talked about, nothing wrong with that. And, Washington wanted chaplains, but there was all kinds of issues in his Continental Army about, well, which religious faith gets it. Nothing causes violence and more hatred and death and the gnashing of the tearing of flesh and the losing the loss of arms and legs than religious fighting, whether it's in Northern Ireland or it's in Rwanda or it's in any place else. And so it definitely has a place. We are constantly people say, gee, Mikey and his family, his foundation want to eat Christians for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks in between. That's just bullshit. Our largest endorsing organization, this may surprise you, Jeff, is the California Council of Churches Impact Organization. They are 5,500 Protestant churches in California, nearly 2 million Protestants in California, and I think it's 21 different denominations. If we were destroying Christians, you wouldn't see that. I consider myself what used to be, a moderate Republican. They don't exist anymore. I don't like to say blue, red, or people go, oh, you're a left-wing commie. No. I've got a picture of myself, my best picture with Reagan, helping him get 76 balloons on his 76th birthday. Right behind him is the person holding the nuclear codes in the little briefcase. You know what I'm talking about. And now that is Trump. And, J.D. Vance is not an idiot, an imbecile like Trump, but that's what's really scary. But you talk about,
he's a liar.
You're saying the words before I can say it. He's the worst type of hypocrite. You read Hillbilly Elegy, which I've done, and you see what this guy
I've read reviews on it and sections of it, and he was praised highly for that.
He's a complete hypocrite and sycophant. He's an obsequious, servile, a bootlicker, and but they all are. You look at Pam Bondi, you look at Christy Nome, you look at Tulsi Gabbard. They are all that way, and they've prostituted themselves out of the human race. But if we were some tiny eighth world country, okay, that's not great. Sorry about that. But we're not. We have all of these weapons, and we have all of these abilities to destroy this extremely fragile world that we have. And the cudgel he's going to use is not going to be the LAPD. It's going to be the United States Marine Corps, United States Army, Navy, Air Force, and Space Force. And that's if you find Christian nationalism, I just want to say this, among the sewage workers, the cops, the firefighters, elementary schools, public schools, middle schools, high schools, colleges, legislatures, it's bad. But if you find it where all the nuclear weapons are, as I said before, it is off the scale and it has to be stopped. Isn't it amazing we've had no nuclear explosions since Hiroshima and Nagasaki? We're due.
I say what I say to people is when they talk about Iran, I say, the last time we did regime change in Iran, we put in a guy who wasn't very friendly, by the way. The Shah of Iran was not exactly a nice guy.
Correct.
And that's why they built that movement to overthrow him. And, anytime we do regime change, we put in somebody, we put in Karzai and Ashraf Ghani, who left the airport on that day with millions of dollars in his pocket, we put these people in power. And then we wonder why there's fundamentalism growing in the Middle East. It's unbelievable.
Correct.
And I'm not saying they're right for being fundamentalists. I'm saying that's what spurns people to be that way, is seeing a hypocritic government operate.
I love doing this with you because you say the same thoughts I've got. I want to make, remember what the mantra is of Pete Hegseth. His mantra that he says over and over and over again is not, buy low, sell high. It's all, or go west, young man. It's all of Christ for all of life. Let me say that again. All of Christ for all of life. If there was a better way to stick a middle finger at the extremists that we're fighting and providing them with this gigantic plantation-sized bonanza of a recruiting, tool. It couldn't be anything more than that.
I
All
wonder
of Christ.
I wonder what the women he cheated on would say about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've got about a minute. I've got about a minute and a half left.
Who wrote the letter that said he was not a good person, and she had to go in front of Congress.
That was embarrassing when Mommy does that.
But it was written.
I've got about a minute to 2 minutes left before I got to hop on another one of these.
Okay, well, let's ask you one more question, and I'll try to get some when you hop off. I'll stay on for my group. The big question that we're seeing a lot of people is, how do they fight? Tell us how they fight. Obviously, supporting the groups like yours and also supporting groups like independent media who are doing this kind of stuff. But tell us.
Independent media is fabulous. It's fabulous. Supporting organizations, there's a bunch of them. We're one of them. You don't have to be the ones that face the hell, but you can fund them to do. We're a nonprofit. It's mrff.org. There's plenty of other organizations, but we are the only ones that focus on the military for any faith or non-faith tradition. In your neighbor, contact. It may sound like it's useless, but still, because they're worried about it, contact your members of Congress. Let them know that you're outraged, because they're always afraid that they're going to lose the next election. If you hear somebody in a restaurant, a movie theater, or just walking around a mall, walking around outside, saying something that you don't like, say something in against it. Granulate the process for this to become a fundamentalist Christian nation. Stand the fuck up if you're in a place and say, hey, I'm sorry, I overheard you. I have a different view about this. And if you need a template as to what you should be like the people in Minneapolis. They were out there in, sub-zero weather and, so inspiring. Springsteen wrote a song about it. And whether this is going to change or not, I think the big thing there is that it made it okay for people to be not just anti-ICE, but anti-MAGA as to what happened with losing innocent people, like Alex Preddy and Renee Good. And so don't be silent. Whether your action is writing a check or using your credit card to support organizations that fight this, or the next time you hear somebody say something, or whether it's somebody in your family, let them know that you're against this. Because if you're not doing that, they think you're for it. And if you're doing nothing, you're as conflicted with collaborating as anybody that was doing that with the Nazis.
Mikey, there's two questions. There's two more questions I want to get in before you go. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Do people serving in the military have to comply with an order when they hear this crazy shit?
No. Under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, another great question, Jeff. So I thank you for that.
All orders. One of our viewers, I think it was Allie.
Yeah, all orders are presumed to be legal, but we don't want to have another My Lai. If you're too young to remember that in Vietnam, horrible slaughter. We don't want another Kent State.
Stopped by an American military person because he thought it was wrong. He was the one who stopped the whole thing.
Right. Kent State, we don't want another one of those. I can tell you as an academy graduate, they don't do a great job on teaching what is an illegal order, but inside. So you have a responsibility not to follow an illegal order. But if it's an order, shoot this child, invade this friend or whatever, you are obligated not to follow it. It's a slippery slope, but it's something that's there. And the military doesn't train for obvious reasons. They don't train their troops to recognize that very easily, even if you've gone to a military academy like my kids did, my dad in Annapolis, myself at the Air Force Academy. Final question.
Yeah, final question is from Jane. It's a comment, but I'd like you to comment on it. She says, there's no difference between this and Islamic extremists.
That's very, very true. I mean, we refer to this as the Christian version of the Taliban or Al Qaeda. There's just no difference. Their view is that they can proselytize in complete free range, anytime, place, or manner. They can push our Constitution into the nearest wood chipper and destroy it, right? And they're just
force your ideology on us. Absolutely.
And if you're in the military, you really can't fight back against a superior. So what we're doing, and that's why they hate us so much, right? Is we're going on these podcasts. I don't always get such erudite, scholarly folks to be on with. It's been a pleasure. I'll do it. We'll do it again for sure, Jeff. But you're not only not obligated to follow illegal orders, you are obligated to refuse to follow illegal orders. It's a great question.
So we've had him for 58 minutes, and he's got a bunch more interviews tonight. But
I'll do one more question if you've got one.
Yeah, we definitely have a whole row.
Holy war is a legal order. Is that?
So, yeah, so would be something like this considered a holy war because they're classifying it as such, and is that an illegal order?
Yes. The concept, if you're trying to indicate that the reason that we are going to war is to satisfy your version of Jesus Christ in the sky, that is absolutely an illegal order. We are supposed to conduct the military. We're supposed to be academy graduates, be able to quote Shakespeare and spit bullets. But the bottom line is that they can sit there and say, well, we can't tell you why you need to go on this mission, but you need to go kill everybody in this village. We need to destroy the village to save it right out of Vietnam lore. But you have the right to question what's going on, and you must be able to do that, even if you're a missile launch officer. They don't train well for it, but we do look exactly like the reflection of, like I said, Boko Haram, ISIS, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, but it's the Christian nationalist version of it. Please read The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Or if you don't want to read it, there's actually 2 books now. You just watch the Hulu series. That's where we're at.
But just to follow up to this, because the importance is to follow up. You have these Christian nationalists would say, look, if you compare ISIS, who's chopping off the heads of people, if you compare the Taliban, which was executing people by hanging them from soccer posts in Kabul, if you compare them to all these Boko Haram or Al-Shabaab, who executes and takes people as child soldiers, this is not what we have in this country. The argument would be then what? Which I know the answer, but I'd like you to say it.
We have 6 dead servicemen right now and 1 woman in that group. They're dead. We haven't looked at how badly their bodies were ripped up and torn. But if they're there to try to advance the concept of the Battle of Armageddon, what's the difference between Al-Shabaab or anybody else cutting somebody's head off if you're putting our sons and daughters, our sisters and brothers, into a conflict like that for a reason that is based on a tortured, despicable, repellent version, horrifying, wretched version of this gospel of Jesus Christ? What is the damn difference? You have torn, blown bodies or whatever. That's been my response. I've been asked that before.
Yeah, my response to it is they're inching towards that with each decision they make. We started out as in his first administration as seeming like he was just a bad leader. And then Project 2025 gets involved, and you have all these Christian fundamentalists running the government now, like Mike Johnson, the biggest hypocrite on the planet, who never seems to remember anything or know anything the president's done when he's questioned. But
I'd say Lindsey Graham gives him a run for his money.
That's true. And every time you turn around, they're inching closer towards these violent actions. And we saw the violent actions with ICE. Those were the precursors. And,
yes.
When they talk about jailing journalists or people that say things against the president,
right.
I mean, this is the kind of creeping totalitarianism that happens in governments that are slowly, they can't do it all at once because people would freak out. So they're doing it in steps every fucking day. So pay attention to these creeping bits of our government creeping towards violence more and more. Anyways, I know, and I don't know if you wanted to comment on that, but I know you're out. And
I want to give one final statement from Bob Dylan's girlfriend, Joan Baez.
Scoot over a little.
Joan Baez has a great statement that action is the antidote to despair. Action is the antidote to despair. Fund these organizations that fight. Speak up. Don't just circulate blood, reflect light, and breathe. Be present. Let them know that you're against this, not just to leave a legacy for your children. Action is that antidote to the despair that you're feeling. And remember, as Jeff said, the old analogy of a frog in warm water while it slowly begins to boil before you realize that, it's being boiled to death. We don't have a lot of time left. There isn't much time. We got to move now. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks very much. Mikey Weinstein from MRFF. Look them up. Keep their websites in front of you, and if you can give $5 to whatever they're doing, 100,000 people doing that, and they can actually cover more of these cases. So
on MRFF.org. Thank you for this opportunity. Please, everybody, fight for this democracy. Fight for our Constitution.
Okay, Mikey's going to jump off, and I'm going to take a few more questions. Thanks, Mikey. I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. My best.
All right. So, guys, this was great. Just to let you know, tomorrow night at 8 p.m., we're going to have Peter Klein on. Peter is the director of the movie Bribe Inc., which was about the largest bribery scandal in U.S. in global history, actually, taken out of the Panama Papers. They found the documentation of all this in this giant treasure trove of documents released in the Panama Papers. And he worked for 5 years on a movie called Bribe Inc., and I worked on it for about 6 months for him. He and I used to work together at 60 Minutes on a number of stories together, both overseas, like the hunt for Joseph Kony and all those kinds of stories. And we worked on he'll probably talk about it tomorrow. A story he did with Bob Simon that I helped arrange with him so he could get down and talk to Muqtada al-Sadr, who you guys probably know from Iraq, a Shiite cleric in Iraq. And so he'll be on, and he'll also be, and if you look at the New York Times, for those New York Times subscribers, he has a piece today in the New York Times that's come out talking about the Iran conflict. So we will delve into a number of subjects with him tomorrow night. And that's going to be for paid subscribers only. And yeah, so let's take a couple more questions. And it was great having Mikey on. What else do we have here? Do you see any more coming in, or?
Not really.
Okay.
We could also go over some of the paid subscriber benefits that we're instituting if you.
I think, yeah, so you guys, where can they find those, honey?
An email went out to everyone.
Yeah.
Every subscriber, paid and non-paid.
Yeah, paid and non-paid subscribers probably got an email today talking about some of the new benefits we're implementing for paid subscriptions. And so I'd take a chance if you can to look over those, because we're going to add value, and we're slowly getting away from putting everything on Facebook, where we try to gravitate people from our Facebook onto our paid subscriptions, and just take a look at them, see if there's anything that floats your boat. And we're going to have like a contest twice a year where basically you write in and tell us why you need a week, three night escape to the writer's cabin in the Highlands of Virginia. And I'll go read those, page or two is fine. Tell me why you want to come, and then I'll go and look through, and whatever floats my boat, whether it's the most interesting thing or the most impassioned plea, whatever it might be. And I'll pick once every 6 months somebody to come out and spend 3 nights with us, which includes spending time with me and Holly in the house, and barbecues and fireside chats and all that kind of stuff that comes with that. And of course, you get to stay in the writer's cabin, which is a pretty damn cool place, frankly. We also have, we're going to do a weekly meme contest. Basically, you guys can send me your memes. On the subscribers can send me your memes, and I'll look at them at the end of the week, and we'll post our favorite meme from the week. And then the contest one, what was?
I think the monthly merch giveaway.
Oh yeah.
For your favorite comment, whether it be witty or intelligent.
Yeah, I love reading the comments, and I do it about 5 hours a day minimum, believe it or not. And I know I don't always respond to them, but you probably see where I've read them. And but I do read them and I respond as many as I can. I limit myself to about 5 hours of that. I could probably do it for 10 and not finish them all. But a witty or interesting or intelligent comment that you put on the page, I'll look through as many as I can. At the end of the month, we give a free merch giveaway. So it could be like a mug, or it could be a T-shirt, or it could be hats, or any number of things that we say on our merch site. You just tell us which one you want. We'll ship it off to you on our expense. And there's other stuff on there as well. So just take a look at the email, and and if those people that are non-paid subscribers want to jump on, you'd be eligible for that stuff. We're trying to gravitate as much as we can onto this page from Facebook, but I'm also trying to build. I have a goal of trying to get a certain number of subscribers this year so that I can afford to do this full time. And I'm creeping towards that goal. So if and some people can't afford to subscribe, and I understand that it's times super tough. But what you can do if you're a non-paid subscriber, you can just send it around to your friends who might be interested in what we're doing here. And that helps in its own way, because it spreads the word of what we're doing and gets more followers, and maybe some of your friends can afford a subscription. So, think about that. All right. So a couple more questions, then we're out for the night. And then remember, tomorrow night, Peter Klein. Peter Klein was Mike Wallace's producer at 60 Minutes. So super highly intelligent guy, and one of my very, very close friends. And, whenever he has a need in DC, he hires me to work on stuff for him, and we've worked on stuff together at 60 Minutes for a long, long time before we both left the show.
Okay, so real quick, someone asked about a link to watch Bribe Inc. We can send that out via email.
Yeah,
and we'll do a write-up and a pre-schedule of tomorrow's podcast and include that in there.
Yeah, we'll do a little trailer. We have one of Peter's trailers for the film that I worked on, and you'll see that that trailer tomorrow, as well as notifications as to where you can watch that film. So some of you might be able to watch it tomorrow, and some of you might just be listening to this really incredible story. And then you can go watch it on one of the sites. I think it's on one site, and it's kind of an obscure kind of site that does a lot of documentary films, but it's cool. It's worth the price of admission. It's really interesting. If you want to know how bribery works and some of the largest corporations in the world trying to get into the oil industry, this one's the one to watch. You have two Iranian brothers who I mean, they were doing bribe deals on behalf of companies like Rolls-Royce. You know, it was incredible. So so we'll see you guys tomorrow. Like, comment, share, and yeah, tomorrow night. And you know, have some tea tonight. I had some great cookies from who sent us the cookies? We had some cookies sent to us.
Well, the Underground Grocer.
Yeah, Underground Grocer. Mindy was her first name, if I'm correct.
Mindy Murphy.
Mindy Murphy from the Underground Grocer. She's not sponsoring me. In fact, I ate some of her cookies and I spent like $100 on a bunch more of her cookies. So yeah, somebody's 1-year subscription went to a box full of cookies, but they're fucking delicious, by the way.
They want to know where they send the memes. They can just message them and
Yeah.
Substack.
You can message them to me in Substack privately, or yeah, I'd send them privately. Be cool. So you guys take care. Mindy, thanks for the cookies. Talk to you guys soon, okay? We're out. If I can figure out how to close this down, everybody. Hit date. You know, what's happening, eh? And I hit it.
Yeah.
And it keeps giving me this thing.
Hang on.
See this? This is why Holly's around. I don't even know how to get out of this thing.
That's because you're left clicking instead of right clicking.
Oh, yeah, I'm a Mac guy. We don't have
a
a right click, left click on the Mac. We just have a click. Mindy, good